Learn the most empowering hiring techniques. Land the most desirable talent. Launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with your host.
All right. Have you ever hired someone with a highly accomplished track record only to watch them fail once they join your team? Well, you're not alone. Many leaders have faced this painful disconnect between past success and future performance. And it all comes down to positioning. Now, we've all been programmed to deal with symptoms, but not the root causes. And as a result, AI has been trained to screen surface level issues, identifying where things match and where they do not match. It fails miserably in being able to identify high performers who align with your unique business. And for this data, we rely on interviews. The only problem is that people have not been trained how to uncover objective data to ensure accurate decision making. I'm Rick Gerard, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show. We help entrepreneurs and executives win the strongest people by sharing insights from top performing rebel entrepreneurs, game changers, and industry leaders. Now, for those of you who don't quite know me, I'm a recovering headhunter who successfully built and exited 2 executive search firms and am now an AI startup founder. I'm the creator of the HireOS hiring operating system, author of the best-selling book, Healing Career Wounds, and I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt who sometimes enjoys running around the office with scissors. Now, my personal mission is to help entrepreneurs and business leaders achieve massive success by getting the strongest people hired in every seat, every time. Now, today we're going to talk about how to leverage AI in a way to enhance your recruiting process. Now, we're currently using AI in a lot of cases to screen resumes and actually do one-way video interviewing with notes. The problem is that it only focuses on the one side of the equation that we tend to focus on, which is performance. So behaviors and understanding whether or not somebody has the skills to do the job is only 50% of what makes a great hire. So 2 concepts I'd like to start with today are positioning and performance. Okay, so positioning is probably, to me, the most important part of the equation where people tend to fail the most. Now, positioning is somebody's desire, right? And what I mean by that is this person properly positioned for your unique company? You can hire somebody who's got tons of experience, who's done fantastic in their current role, but they're completely out of alignment with what your organization is. Now, this happens most often when somebody comes from a large organization to a small organization. They're used to having lots of resources, lots of time, training, having a lot of ability to kind of really work through problems, where in a small company, they just don't have that. So this is the most common point of failure that I've seen in my career. Now, most of this culture shock happens when somebody's looking for a job. So if somebody was let go from a large organization and they're looking for an opportunity, but it really has to do with the fact that they're really just looking for a paycheck. And we're going to talk a little bit more about like how we know whether or not somebody's in the right position in a minute here. But positioning is about a couple different things. One, pace. Is somebody going to be able to work at the pace that your organization works in? Resources. What resources do you have available? And how much time does somebody have in order for them to show you that they can be successful within the organization? If I start a large company, I got a lot bigger of a window than I do if I join a startup where I really have maybe 30, 60, 90 days to start moving the ball forward. So it's a lot more doing quicker, failing faster, and then fine tuning, which again is not a common bit of training that happens in a large organization. So I want to back up here and I want to talk about a person's DNA. So I believe that people are positioned to be either builders, improvers, or maintainers. Now, let me explain what those are. Builders tend to be people who like to go into a situation with little or no information and gather requirements and build something from 0 to 1. Cool thing is that builders are what you need if you're a small business. Now, if you're hiring people who are not builders, then you need to really look at your interview process and make sure that you're conveying. Actually, if you look at every person that you have hired that's failed, I can bet that none of them were builders. So you need to focus in on, hey, is this person really want to go from 0 to 1 or build something from scratch? And the nice part about it is that language would come out in conversation, and I'll teach you how to get that in a second. Improvers are people that are going to get you from 10 to 20 million, get you from 20 to 100 million or 50 million, right? Improvers are people who start with your process that you already have and they make it better, right? Those are people that you need to spur your growth. And they're specialists at different levels. So what got you from 0 to 10 million is not going to most likely get you from 10 to 50 million. It's going to take another set of skills that somebody else is going to be able to have to either learn, or you're going to have to bring somebody in to provide for you. Now, maintainers are simply the people that keep the lights on, they keep things running, they keep your customers happy. They're very, very important to the business, and they're doing what they do best. They keep the business running, right? Often where we get into trouble too is you get maintainers who come out of a large company organization. They were keeping the wheels running and doing a good job, and they had a pretty substantial amount of success within the organization, but they were, for whatever reason, let go, or they've left, and now they're looking for their next opportunity. Maintainers are the highest point of failure when you come into a small organization where you need somebody to build a system or build process or kind of really fine tune and make things go from 0 to 1. All right, you're listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. I'm your host, Rick Gerard. We're going to take a quick educational moment from our sponsors. All right, we're back, and we're talking about how to identify the person who's positioned correctly for your business. Now, I want to plug in some thoughts about AI here, because I just shared with you kind of the idea of builders, improvers, and maintainers. Challenge with AI is that most systems can't really understand, one, if somebody's got a desire for the type of organization that you are, and two, if somebody's really prone to, like, is it in their DNA to be a builder, improver, or maintainer? Now, just so happens, if that's something that you're interested in, InterTrue is a great solution for you to look into. So check out InterTrue, INTERTRU.ai for more details, and I'll give you more details at the end of the show. So let's, as we always talk about, this is a problem solution show, and let's talk about how we solve this problem. Now, years ago, we created a process called Hire OS. And part of that process is really understanding whether or not somebody is positioned properly for your organization. This happens in the very first discovery call, because if somebody's not positioned or prone for growth within your organization, there's no reason why you should bring them through an interview process. So first, it's really important, where we start is we need to discover if somebody has the right DNA. And more importantly, we need to ask ourselves, what does the business need? What does this role need that we're hiring, right? If you're hiring your first marketer, it's pretty easy. If you're hiring your first salesperson, it's pretty easier. Even probably your first 2 to 4 of those people, it's pretty easy. You need people that are builders, that really want to move the ball forward, and they're going to make an impact quickly. They need to move fast. They need to get things done. They need to accomplish things. If you're going from 20 to 50 million, you're going to need a different pace. You're going to need a different type of person. So understand what is needed by the role. You could have a business that's going 10 to 20 million, but you have no marketing. You're starting a new marketing department from scratch. Perfect. You need a builder. You need somebody to come in and build that. So to find out what you need, not what you want, but what the business needs. And that's a really important thing to define, right? So starting from scratch, you need a builder. Growing the business, you need an improver and somebody to come in and do the work and keep people happy, keep customers happy, and keep the revenue coming in. Maintainer. Now, I always like to start with, when we're talking about positioning, desire. Now, when you're talking to candidates, what does desire mean? What's most important to that candidate is, what is it the environment that they're going to thrive in? What's in it for me, right? This is often overlooked in most phone screens or most conversations because we're busy selling our opportunity to get somebody excited so they want to come to work for us. But we totally negate the issue of, does this person even want what we are, or are they just looking for a paycheck? And if they're just looking for a paycheck, you don't necessarily want them in your organization, because you want to provide them an avenue to where they're going to thrive and they're going to do well within the business. Nobody wants to join a company and not do well. So let's set them up for success. If you're setting somebody up if you're selling somebody, you're setting them up for failure. But if they're telling you, hey, I want this is really important to me, and you match that, now you're setting them up for success. So how do we understand that? Start with a question. If you could create your next opportunity from scratch, what would that look like for you? It'll be posted in the notes, but this is a really important question that we ask when we start to understand desire, right? A big clue is that if you're looking for builders, and I'm talking to you, most of you startup founders, builders are mainly what you need for most of your positions, right? Builders use the word build in their language when you talk about the type of work they desire, right? You're going to hear something like, I really want to build something from 0 to 1. Or I enjoy coming in at a point where, like, there's really not much, there's kind of some concepts, and I can focus in on understanding what the business case is, and then I can go off and build it, right? They enjoy taking something from concept and bringing it to life. So you'll also hear things like, yeah, I'm at a company where I'm bored of the work because I really like to create something new. I'm just doing maintenance work. There's a lot of different examples or different patterns that you're going to hear, but builders are usually bored, or they're unchallenged, or they're feeling underappreciated in their current role. These are key indicators that you have somebody that, like, you give them the right opportunity, they're going to come in and thrive. And that's ultimately, as a business owner, what you want for your people. You want your people to come in and thrive. If you don't listen to this podcast. Go find yourself another podcast to listen to. All right. So first thing, boom, we want to understand if people are builders. Now, here's the next thing. Culture matters. Now, you may be just running a business and not thinking about your core values, your culture, any of that sort of thing. Guess what? You have a culture no matter what. You have core values no matter what. So either those core values and culture manage you, or you manage them. And the way in which you manage them is by getting them down on paper, getting them in front of everybody, and making them a North Pole, like a North Star for you to be able to hold people accountable. So here's the question we ask for culture. What type of culture or environment do you do best in? Now, here's the thing. Most companies have cowboy cultures, which leads to behavioral problems because nobody knows how they're supposed to act. Now, if you have core values and you have an established culture, good on you. You're ahead of the game. Now all you have to do is allow them, the candidate, to tell you what type of environment they do best in. So do they need collaboration, or do they need independence? Do they work well in a remote environment? Do they need to be in the office? This is all unique to that individual. And if you don't have that environment, let them go. If you do have that environment, then great. Now we have a proof point to let us know that that person's going to most likely be that much more successful because we're providing the environment that they're going to do well at. Size matters, guys. All right. So this is the one of the most critical clues as to whether or not somebody is going to be successful in your business. A question that we typically ask is, what size company do you do best in? Now, you're going to get a lot of answers like, oh, I do well in any size company. No, they don't. People have a size company in which they do better. People who tend to have worked in a large corporate environment have been somewhat institutionalized. They're used to having a lot of resources. They're used to dealing with the politics, and they're used to being able to navigate within that environment. They can move slower. They're comfortable there. Now, if somebody's itching, if they're in that type of company and they're telling you, gosh, you know what? I've been in a large company. However, I hate it. I need to be in a smaller company environment where I can be more agile. Great. That's a good thing. But most of the time, people will tell you where they're going to thrive, like what size company they're going to thrive. And it's, as you know, as a small business leader or a medium-sized business leader, your company is very different than a large company. And it's very different than a startup, right? So that being said, at each stage, you need to understand, does this person fit into my stage of the business? And then ask them how small is too small for you. You'd be surprised. I've had people say to me like, hey, look at, I like to work in smaller companies, somewhere around 1,000 people. How small is too small? You know what? Less than 500 would be too small for me. Now, if your company's smaller than that, great. We can end the call and we can move on, be friends. But we don't want to set, again, people up for failure. And if they can't navigate or work within the type of environment and the stage that we're at, let's not waste anybody's time. Finally, the last point that I want to get at is role expectations. Now, quite often you see situations where candidates may be in management or a director level, and they apply for individual contributor positions. Big red flag and clue, right? Now, again, I've had people that have said to me, hey, look, I've been a director, I've been in this corporate environment. I would really like to work at a smaller company as an individual contributor, and here's why. Now, the why is the most important piece here. Why would you want to take a step back in your career, in your title, and come back and go to an individual contributor role? People have different motivations, but there better be a legitimate reason why you should move that person forward in the interview process. Like, hey, look, I would like to work in a different industry. I really want to learn your industry. And as a result, I want to come in as an individual contributor. I want to learn as much as I can about that industry. And then I want to help you grow the business. Legitimate. So if at any point somebody doesn't match up with that, here's the thing. When you interview people properly, tell them that, hey, we don't fit at this point. Now, size is a place where I release a lot of people, and I'll tell you why. If somebody says, hey, look, I'm looking for an organization, a smaller business, maybe like 1,000 people, and my organization is a ground level startup, there's 6 of us. I can guarantee you they're not going to do well in my organization, and I don't want them to waste their time or mine in trying to figure that out or find out. I'm not big for science experiments on this. So I'll share that with them. Hey, look, we're a small 5-person startup. I don't think that you're going to be a fit here. And, certainly I don't want to set you up for failure. So having that conversation at that point is critical. And what it does is it allows them to bow out. So, hey, look, I don't really want to set you up for failure here. I don't think you're going to be a fit. What are your thoughts on this? Yeah, you're absolutely right. I I'm comfortable at a bigger company where I have benefits and resources and all these things that you can't offer me. Perfect. Now I can simply like wrap up the interview and move on to the next person. You can bet the right person is going to feed you exactly not what you want to hear, but the truth about what they want. And when that matches with what your business is, now you're in a situation where you're taking the right person through the process and getting yourself a significantly much stronger hire. All right, key takeaways for this is what I want to kind of I want you guys to learn and plug into your business. First, define and understand the DNA of the role and the person, right? What is needed for the role? Be religious about diligence and asking deeper level questions to understand where a person fits in that DNA structure. Those questions that I just provided you on those 4 concepts, use them. If you don't use our system, they're built in, write them down and feed them to your people. If you'd like to talk to us at InterTrue about utilizing our system to kind of coach people through that interview process, we'd love to talk to you. And when a person's desire does not match up with the business needs, no matter what, no matter how impressive the resume is, or the fact that they were recommended by somebody you trust, you must let them go. All right, I want to thank you for tuning in this week's episode of Higher Power Radio. Quick thanks to our team, Brian Colburn, Andrea Ballin, and Ayla Gerard. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe, review, and share after all this show's for you. And we want to continue to provide excellent content for you week after week. You can join the Higher Power Radio show at Higher, H-I-R-E, Power, P-O-W-E-R, radio, radio.com, or you can drop me an email at rick@intertrue, intertru.ai. I'm your host, Rick Gerard, and you have been listening to the Higher Power Radio show. Aloha.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power Radio. Catch our LinkedIn Live show every Tuesday at noon, or download the podcast on iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform. We appreciate you joining us on Higher Power Radio with your guide to hiring success, Rick Gerard.